Can you see it? Oh, perfect.
If anyone has a question for her, make sure you're aiming your voice at the box so it sort of picks it up.
Yeah, that's where the sounds come from. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So how about we give you
You've got to mute yours.
the floor,
It is on the
Susan, and we will introduce you as a very experienced overland guide.
Well, thank you.
Some of your wealth of information, tricks and tips you've learned along the way when dealing with overlanders.
Happy to do that. Yeah, I'm currently on tour at the moment, everyone. So my group have a free day, so I'm taking a little bit of time out to talk to you. Okay to go ahead, Birgitta?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess one of the most important things that I write up in the beginning is you must ensure that you are very well rested before you start the tour, because you're in for something that you think, oh yes, it's 10 hours a day or whatever it might be, but it's bigger than you think. So you must get really well rested. You must also clear your mind from the last tour. So have a reasonable amount of time off between the tours so you can complete your paperwork, have a couple of days of me time, and then, or a week, whatever you think that you might need. So that's really important. That those three things will set you and set the tone for you. You absolutely need to read the information on the guests and research their interests, because you get that a lot of times. Sometimes you don't, but generally on overlands you do. You get a fair bit of information. You don't understand everybody's interests. There's things that I hear about quilting. I don't know anything about quilting. So I make, if anybody's interested, I read it each time and I find out information and things that that they might want to know. Know their names and their dietaries. That's really, really important. You must contribute to the guest engagement and participation, and that's by supporting a range of interests, their interests, not just yours. Then when you're starting, on the tour, just be so welcoming and so exciting. Be available and accessible, but set clear boundaries. If you're the sort of person that you're not a morning person and you need to have breakfast on your own, don't sit in the middle of the breakfast room. Go earlier. Just do whatever it is if you need that time. That is really important, to set some boundaries, and but be available and accessible, but clear about what you need. Get plenty of sleep and be fresh every day. That's vital. Dress appropriately and professionally. I see people on the road and I'm wondering, are you going camping in the outback, or what is it that you're doing, when you're in Sydney or Melbourne? So those are some basic things. The really important things are knowing your itinerary, making sure that all the timings work. That's just goes without saying. You've got to know that those timings are working. Reach out to all the experience guides. There's a wealth of information out there. Tap into it. Go to TGA, go to the TGA guides, talk to them. That they're very happy to mentor, happy to set up ride-alongs for you. Just use all of the resources that other guides can offer to you. Also, when you're going to new places, we all have guided somewhere we've never been. So if you live in Melbourne, you've guided in Melbourne, you've grown up there, you know loads about it. Me, I didn't grow up in Melbourne, haven't been there. I just went to what was it called? Down on the Great Ocean Road, the Wonderland Wildlife Place, and I hadn't been there before. So what did I do? I did a Google Earth. So I did a Google Earth so I could have a look at what it looked like. So I knew, basically, I called them, tell me where the toilets are in relation to when I walk in the front door. Where's the lunch going to be served? Know all these things. Call the hotels, call the airports, call the venues, and ask where things are ahead of time. You don't want the guests to think that you don't know what you're doing and you're fumbling around. Use the resources that are available to you. There's Facebook groups. There's Facebook groups for TGA. There's Facebook groups for the tour series. So that's like some of the inbound operators. There's a wealth of knowledge on those sites. Tap into it. Once you've sort of, started on your tour, it's really important that the guests know what's coming up. They get an itinerary. The itinerary often doesn't have timings on it. It's got sketchy information. A lot of what I'm finding at the moment is it's got pre-COVID information on it. So it's really important. I do a little location itinerary. So if I'm going to the Red Centre and I'm going to fly into Alice Springs, do a couple of days there, then bus it down to the Rock and do some Uluru touring, then I will drop a schedule. So I started by putting some information, some basic information about the Red Centre. And I'm happy to share all the information I've got with other TGA guides. They know that. And then put in the timings. That's really, really important because that's what they've got may have changed because you've reconfirmed everything. You've not only reconfirmed it by email, you've reconfirmed it by phoning the venues before you start on the tour, and then you reconfirmed it while you're on the tour because things change. You get told something by someone who's new at a place. They want to give an answer. They're trying to do their best job at the venue. So they kind of go, oh, yes, yes. And then you get there, it doesn't happen. So you just keep reconfirming and give the guests that little itinerary, that localized. You don't want to do a day by day. They've already got that. So if you're flying in New Melbourne, the Red Centre, Cairns and Sydney, that's only 4 things that you have to do. You can pre-do them ahead of time and then you just tweak them. And the day before you're going to that place, email them to your guests so they know what's going on. But you also need to tell your guests as well. Some people need to hear things and they need to hear more than once, One of the things that I see on overlands is pacing not being addressed. And pacing's about ensuring the physical level of your guests, that they're enjoying what they're doing, but the pace is right. So balance free time with whatever it is in the itinerary. And one of the most important things, and you've got to measure this straight up in the beginning on day one, first walk, who's the slowest walker and who's the fastest walker? Pitch yourself at the middle and the fast walkers will turn around and see, oh, the guy, and they'll slow down. And that doesn't make the slow walker feel bad. You've got varying ranges for people. You must always keep an eye on everybody when you're out walking. So turn around often. I generally ask someone to come up the rear of the group. Those kind that want to be your wingman, they stick out. They stick out in the first few minutes. So when we're walking, we're going to be, I'm going to do a laneways tour in Melbourne. There's a lot of people around. Could you just come up the rear and keep an eye on me and I'll keep an eye on you? And then we know the group's in the middle of them. So that's just a little tip that works. Often though, nowadays we all use the transmitter and the headsets, whispers, whatever they're called, so the guests can hear you at all time. But that pacing's about the walking, but it's also about the speed of the tour. It's about getting up early, all of those things. It's about making sure pacing is right for the guests. Something that I do, particularly now with technology, is I ask everyone to download WhatsApp or something similar. There's clusters, there's a whole range of them. Or you could just use PhotoCircle to put up group photos, but also you can update things and talk to the guests, and the guests can ask you individual questions. So this morning I put up something for my guests I'm currently touring with, and then they come back to you individually and say, oh, I threw my earpiece in the bin and used my own. So, they don't want to say that in the chat, but you have it in the group and then everyone's got access to you as well. When you're on tour, you're part of a little team, and that team's your driver, it's the hotel staff, it's the porters. You're not a standalone person. You're working with a lot of people. Work with them, talk to them, be prepared. Particularly your drivers, they live in the places where you're going. They've got that extra bit of local knowledge that you may not have. He's going to be he or she, your driver, is going to be your greatest ally on tour. So make sure that you do. I let drivers say something. You know, I just make a joke. I get on the microphone and I say, oh, well, we're working with Peter today, and Peter's married with, 4 daughters. Can you imagine living in a household with 5 women? He never gets a word in. So he's asked me to say a few little things. And the group think it's not that you don't know or that he's adding, you're sharing. And they love that. And they're hearing another voice other than yours. No one wants to hear your voice for 3 weeks straight. Besides, your voice gets hoarse. So it's really nice. Think of something that suits you and a way that you can sort of value add with the driver, some little joke that works for you. And when you're on tour, you must do everything that's on the itinerary. And even if you think you're going to make a change and cut something out because you're running late, your guests will go back and they will make a complaint. Even they go, oh, that's fine. You must do everything that's on tour, that's on the itinerary. You can value add. I do it all the time. You can value add, but keep in mind your pacing, keep in mind, your group, their interests. Definitely value add, but don't take out of it. That's kind of something that's pretty important. So they're all some of that. That's just basic. There's a whole lot of other things, and I'm really happy for anybody to reach out to me. But in 15 minutes, it's hard to narrow down. I've typed it outside to Birgitta, and she can hand it out. But there are a few don'ts, unfortunately. Don't say, this is my first time. The guests lose confidence in you. If they say, how many times have you done this? Go, oh, a truckload. They go, what? It's a truckload. Well, it's a truckload. I can't remember. We've had a pandemic. We've got a whole lot of new guides, and we want to welcome you into the industry. We really do. There's places for you all. But if you say, never done this before, they've never been here before, their confidence in you is going to go out the window. So work out something that's suitable to your personality. Don't lie to them. I don't lie to them. How many times you've been to the Kimberley? I don't say never. Well, first time. I said, can't remember when I was here. Can't remember when you were last there because you've never been there. So it's not actually a lie. So think about what you're saying, Another don't is don't give your personal opinion as gospel, because your opinion is your opinion. And I preface it by saying, this is what I've researched, or this is what I know about this, or I might even say sometimes, this is my opinion on it. Be very clear that they know that the whole of Australia doesn't think the way you think. That's very important. So don't make out that your opinion's the only one and the right one. We all feel very strongly about certain topics, but you have to play the even field on it. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's so important. When you're keen and when you're new, you want to do everything. And if you're doing a 10-day tour and you're going at such an enormous pace, you're doing so much, come day 5, you're going to be worn out, and then you're going to start to underdeliver. So don't ever do that, Also, a lot of tours, and those of you that do overlands will know this, that on some tours you're encouraged to have that included glass of wine with the guest. Sometimes you're encouraged to host a cocktail hour. If you don't drink alcohol, that's fine. But if you do, then you don't drink to excess ever with the guests. Because, and what's excess? It's relative, isn't it? 1 glass or 2 is fine. But I take a cue from the guests. If 50% of the people just have the included wine and nothing else, then that's all I have. Have some water. If 90% of the guests don't have the included wine and choose to have a lemon, lime and bitters or a Coke, then I have a lemonade, lime and bitters. Got to read the room. do what they're doing, because I can tell you, if something goes wrong the next day, and you might know, but just say you drink a bottle of wine every night, say you do, and you're perfectly okay to function the next day, and then the guest sitting opposite you drinks 2 glasses of wine every night and wakes up with a hangover and can't function. So it's about perception. If they see you drink 3 glasses of wine, their perception is you've drunk too much. So read the group. And if something goes wrong, the first thing that goes into their mind, and it'd be something out of your control, you were drinking. And they'll write that in their evaluations and their reports. So that is really, really important. And if you have a glass of wine with the guests and you want to have one, have it in your room. Don't go to the bar, have it in your room. Just be away from the guests. That's going to hold you in good stead. It's going to take away any angst if something goes wrong, you know. And if touring for you, I think my 15 minutes is almost up, and I wanted to ask some time for questions, but I'm just saying, if for you it's all about the excellent salary and the benefits, then this is not for you. It's all about a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and it is a lifestyle choice for you.
Those are beautiful words to finish off with. Yeah. They are very wise words and very wise recommendations. A very experienced tour leader. So thank you.
I didn't say very much about myself. I've been doing Overland since 1998. So I started when I was 4. I know. And I do have a lot of experience, and I'm very happy to share it. Do I make mistakes? Yeah, I still do, but I learn from them. And I have a little bank, I have a little toolkit that I pull from, and I think everyone's the same. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone?
We'll move the camera to you so she can see you. No, we're looking at via at the moment. Yeah. I'll have a think for a minute, Susan. I'll have a think.
Okay. Well, I live in Cairns, and so to do a lot of overland work, I have to travel to Sydney and Melbourne. And some of the operators fly you down and give you accommodation. Some don't. So you have to out it. You think, well, it's going to cost me $300 for an airfare. I'm going to get paid $10 a day. I'm working for 3 weeks. I'm going to end up with $210. Am I going to spend $300 in airfare? I don't think so. Or, oh yes, I'm going to, because I really want the experience and I want to go there this tour. So always factor that in, that you might be offered overland jobs that start in a city other than Melbourne, and the inbound operator may say to you, well, the job starts in Sydney, so you need to get there. Or some of the inbound operators say, we give you $200 for overnight accommodation the night before tour starts. You've got to find something for that. Or they might say, we give you $250 for the airfare, and the airfare might be $300. So take all those things into consideration. And what I do is I add up what I'm going to expend and what I'm going to get paid, and divide it out by the number of days, and go, okay, well, I'm not going to get, $10 a day now. I'm going to get $7.50. Am I happy to work for $7.50? Yeah, I am, because some days are going to be 5 and 6 hours, and some days are going to be 12 hours. And then I take all that into consideration. So that's about the choice. That's about your choice. So you need to think about that as well. It's not about the pay.
Yeah, Anna.
Hi, Susan. Hi, my name is Anna. Hello. I have a question for you. When you're doing
Speak loudly into the
when you're doing these really long tours, like 30 days or so, for a really, really long time, how do you find the balance of letting them really get to know you and you as a person versus the professionalism of not talking about your family or your sort of life, and keeping it really boundaried, which would be something you'd more likely do if you were with the group for half a day or 1 day. But when you're doing this sort of really extended tour, surely they want to actually get to know the leader. What, have you got any advice about that balance?
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I'm a fairly private person, but I do an introduction, we do a welcome, and I talk a little bit about myself, my interests, my background a little bit. And if things come up, but if people come to me and start wanting to sit there and talk to me, I just flip it to general Australia, things that everyone does in Australia, because it's just for me, I don't want to reveal all of my personal life to people I don't know. And I don't want to reveal all of my personal life to people that I do know. And Leanne and Birgitta will tell you that. You know, they know me, but they don't know everything about me. I'm just one of those people. So I try and talk about, I tend to talk a lot about what I call a day in the life of the Aussie. And so I talk about that when they say, well, you know, when did you get married? And I'll say, oh, well, generally, my group got married around the 22 to 24-year-old mark. But nowadays, people get married later, and I flip it like that. So I'm not actually saying, well, I was 23. So you all know now. I was 23 when I got married. I don't actually say that. I just say, oh, my age group, it was 22 to 24. So that's how you keep the balance going. For me, anyway. Other people do other things, but that's what I do.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone
That's
else?
helpful.
Yeah, it is actually, yes.
Sure.
That's awesome. Wisdom, thank you so much again for you going out for dinner tonight with your group, I understand.
Yeah, we've got our farewell dinner
Is that the
tonight.
day? Yeah, wonderful. And how many people, how many packs on your group?
Well,
In your group?
this is the other thing that I didn't say. Sometimes you start out with a number and end up with the same number. So I started out with 16 people, and I now have 13. And that's because they just didn't like me and they decided to go home.
Right. I'm sure that wasn't the case. What happened there during an extension?
So one had a family emergency. She flew in and flew out on the very same day. Actually didn't even get to meet the group, unfortunately. And I was in Melbourne a day earlier, luckily, so I was able to assist her. And the other two, the wife got COVID, and she was worried about the rest of the group getting it. But I tried to explain to that if the rest of the group were going to get it, it's too late once you've tested positive. We've already been with you for those 48 hours when medical science says you're contagious. Everyone has a different opinion on that. But she went home. So I've ended up with 13 people. Yeah. And
Nice
that happens a lot. So I've only got 13. These are small group tours. I do some overlands with over 40 people. That is hard work. I do not do those back to back. I do not do very many of them at all. It's very, very hard work. And you have to have at least a week, if not more, after you've done something like that.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you. No one, any last questions for her? No. Well, thank you so much for your input, valuable input. We will be using you in future if that's okay. I know you said it was okay, yeah?
It is okay. And listen, can I just say, I hope to see you all on the road.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I do local guiding in Melbourne as well for cruise ships and different things. And, you know, I hope you get so much out of this course. It's just amazing. TGA is a fabulous organization. I've been in it for a long time. It's going to be your lifeline starting in the industry. And the first thing you've done, you've taken the 100% correct step, getting yourself accredited, doing the micro-credential course. Pat on the back to all of you and welcome.
Thank you.
I'm just going to stay on for a minute. I'll unmute and I've got to go.